I feel like I have trouble relating to my teenage son. Lately, it feels like there's a weird dynamic between us. I'm chuckling because my 15-year-old lives with me. Lately, I feel like there's a weird dynamic between us, and I rarely know what to talk about. When I reflect upon my own childhood, my parents rarely interacted with me unless it was to refine me. That's the politically correct way of saying punish me. And I became very uncommunicative as a result. I tend to put on a persona when I am around people, but then I struggle with how to be around my son. When I try to be the caring parent, it usually consists of superficial interactions with the same repetitive questions about school, friends, etc. How was your day? Do you have any suggestions regarding how I can find a deeper and more authentic way of relating? Sure. So, a couple of disclaimers here just to make you feel a little better. First, a broad statement. You are, with all due respect, you're way overanalyzing this, putting way too much into it than is necessary, and that's disserving you and your son. I'm going to go from the broad to the specific. First, that one. You're putting way too much weight on this and being super analytical. Bear in mind, the teenage years have a couple of qualities that are all pervasive for all teens. This is a period of time where, on a physical level, the body is going through more change than has ever happened since infancy, since the first year or two of their life. They're going through rapid change, and not just the expansion of size, but the changing of their body, the transmutation of their body, entering puberty, pubic hair, organs growing, systems developing, fertility and happening, and carnal sexual desire, self-discovery, all in addition to the Jolly Green Giant expansion of size. And the mind is doing the same. The emotional body is on a roller coaster. It's like an atomic bomb that goes off as they approach puberty. So I'm saying these things, again, to illuminate and educate, but also to take your attention and your worry so much off of the child and, off of yourself so much. What's he saying? What's he doing? Why is he doing this? Why is he acting like this? And turning your focus a little onto him to give you some perspective of, you've lost sight to some degree of what this young man is going through, this quantum amount of change. And of course, we're talking about a boy in this question, but young man, young woman, boys and girls both go through it. And they go through it at different speeds, at different rates, at different times. Same general window. Girls tend to start, again, not 100%, but most girls will start a year or two ahead of boys. And, and they come in at they have different peaks and troughs in the various cycles within adolescence. The physical blooming of the body, the expansion and the fertility and all that tends to happen sooner for girls. Again, not 100% of the time. And I'm not going to list all the permutations and nuances of it all, but they don't go note for note identical in the two genders. But understand in a general sense how much they're going through on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level. Now, deep within themselves, this is also there are three huge bastions of change. There's that physical and mental and emotional rapid acceleration. Then, in terms of the psyche, this is the period of time where the child is now starting to develop its own identity, its values, morals, belief systems, which then parlay into choices and desires and ideologies and goals and visions. This develops so rapidly at this time, faster than any other time in their whole life. And at the same time, while developing more rapidly than any other window of time in a human being's entire embodiment, they also start to apply it forward in their life. That's a lot of pressure to get all these visions and ideas and start thinking about what do I want to be, what do I want to do, and then to try to map it out when you're not even in a position to map it out. You don't have the tools, you don't have the ability, and they're worrying about it and thinking about it and getting excited about it and depressed about it. And while their body is popping off like popcorn kernels in hot oil, going crazy, while they're having all these desires, and then coupled with that, the development of the identity, the separate identity from just being a tag-along with a parent and having the parent say, choose, think, do everything for them. Brush your teeth at 8 o'clock, Tommy. You'll wear these underwear. Here's the cute little outfit I bought you at Kmart. You're going to wear these clothes till you're in 9th grade. Now they're choosing. I want this toothbrush and that toothpaste, and I want to wear these. I don't want to wear the little baby outfit you want. I want this clothing. And you have the parents who try to hold on to that and want to keep buying their clothes. And then you have the other extreme, the parents who have the I did my 9 months philosophy and let their kids raise themselves like feral animals. So, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of parenting. The smothering, helicopter parenting, to the I did my 9 months, you're on your own, you know? I suffered my 9 months, raise yourself. And everything in between. Obviously, the two extremes are horrific. But there's a wide range that's acceptable and that won't do too much damage, that can really help the kids. And you got to find your way, find your niche in there with that. But again, it's the understanding of how much they're going through. And as you learn to understand that, you create within yourself more patience, more understanding, more tolerance, more forgiveness, and big word, compassion for what they're going through. And that will help you release the reins of control a little bit more and be there more as a moral support for them. An ear, an understanding ear, a shoulder to cry on or lean on when they need help, when they need support. Sometimes they'll want to be private. Grant them that right. They're developing their own separate identity. Sometimes they'll want to reach out. But if you're forcing your hand all the time, you're mostly going to get rejected. Or they'll patronize you, which a lot of children do. They'll get so fed up with being chokehold, choke-held, and controlled that they'll finally, or being interrogated or peppered with questions all the time, they'll just develop like a robot, R-O-T-E, wrote answers to tell you what your ego wants to hear, to placate you, and then just do whatever they want. The same way parents who are too controlling and don't start metering out certain freedoms that all children need, and I can't tell you what they are because it's a whole process. It's an undulating, morphing, growing process that I can do with an individual. If I sit with someone and we look at your world, your life, your persona, your child's, yes, then I can get very specific. But in a general sense, this is a window of time where you need to start releasing the drag on the fishing reel and letting the child run with certain things to certain degrees, and your wisdom and intellect and emotional intuition and your heart intuition has to make these choices. Sometimes you'll do it well, sometimes you won't. Have compassion for yourself. Yes, you are going to step on a rake plenty and feel the thwack of the rake handle against your forehead when you make mistakes. It's very important not to project onto your child this image of perfection that you're always right. If you make a mistake, there's nothing wrong, and I highly encourage that you own that in front of the child. Because when you don't, every soul knows the truth at all times. And your children know when you're out of integrity, even if they don't know that they know. And what happens is when you mess up and you fall off your horse or do something out of integrity or out of honesty, dishonest or that's not wholesome, and you don't own it, what happens it can happen consciously, but it always happens unconsciously. You have lost esteem in the child's eyes, and trust starts to break down. And what that leads to eventually is they'll start lying to you because they're trusting you less. Now, this is not a conversation usually, almost never, and it's not something that sometimes either party, parent or child, knows consciously, but it's happening. So now when I say own your mistakes, I don't mean turn yourself into a doormat, because a parent also has a position of power. Remember, you're their protector as well as their teacher, and you're their guide, you're their mentor. You're the one they look up to, or hopefully. So it's not about throwing yourself under the bus. Oh, Mom and Dad was so stupid. I'm such a jerk. And you don't do that. You could say, you know what? I spoke inappropriately to you yesterday. I really raised my voice and I yelled, and I had a promise to myself and to you that I would never swear at my kids. I would never yell, and I'm really sorry for that. That was inappropriate. Now I also want to point out what you did was very inappropriate, and I hope you don't ever do that again. But the way I handled it, I could have handled it better. But please, let's separate the two. You can speak to them like that. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to agree and go, oh yeah, thanks, Mom. They might come at you again, but they heard it. And underneath the surface conversation, they respect you. And they look up to you because they know you're honest, they know you're there for them, they know you're devoted to them, and they know you care about them. What plays on at the surface is usually the opposite. I see kids, you know, oh, my parents let me do whatever I want. I have no curfew, and I can watch anything. I can watch porno if I want at 12 years old. You know, and those kids will brag to their friends, but those kids, when they go to their room at night, what they're thinking is, my parents don't give a rat's behind about me. My parents don't care what I do. They don't watch over me. But they'll brag to their friends. I see it, and I hear it, and I see it in the kids, and I hear them say it in by 30 years of counseling. So you can't give too much credence to what's happening at the surface of the pond here. You got to listen to it and give some credence to it, but you got to go deeper and see the underpinnings of what's going on. Now, I didn't get to the third bastion here. With the explosive physical change as one, and emotions, the establishing for the first time of a separate identity, belief system, desires, goals, dreams, thoughts, opinions, all of that, there comes a very natural process. It's called in psychology the cutting of the apron cord to the parents. That plays out differently in every household. There is a generality, a generalization of how it looks. Oftentimes there is a rebelliousness in many teens, most teens. There is a defiance, there is a disobedience. Where in the scale of 1 to 10? I can't say. It's different for every child, based on the child, based on what's happened in its life, based on the other siblings, based on how the parents treat them. So I can't give it a number, but I can give it a dynamic. There is, as part of the establishing of the identity, there's also a cutting of the apron cords. And that is a normal, healthy process. How you handle it and understand it determines how it's going to play out. It'll play out to a certain degree because every personality, every psyche is different. But if you don't understand it and you want to fight that very natural process, it's going to get ugly. And they're going to respect you less, they're going to lie to you more, they're going to defy you more, and you're going to have a little war zone. But if you understand that, you work with it. You know, there's a couple of kitsch expressions in psychology. Pick your battles, don't sweat the small stuff, give certain freedoms and really, release the drag on the fishing reel that's pulling in this fish, so to speak. As you're guiding it, I shouldn't say pulling in a fish, but guiding it into adulthood, you got to know when to give certain freedoms, and you have to give some. It's important. If you hold that chokehold, you might get them through, but they're not going to respect you, and you're going to get lied to a lot. So part of this particular person who's asking the question, part of the difficulty you're finding is that you've had such a chokehold, a controlling chokehold on your child, a smothering hold on the child, that you're finding it difficult, this very natural process of his being in his teens now. So listen to these words over and over again and give yourself some credit, take a breath, understand that a lot of this is very natural, and a lot of his reactiveness and his distancing, he's playing off of you. Part of it is just what he's going through, and part of it he's playing off of you. So, which means part of that you can ameliorate and mitigate. You can soften it and help reduce it by the changes you make in you. But even if you tomorrow turned into a living saint, there's still a certain amount he's going to go through. Let that be okay. Continue to be a good parent, be a good role model, practice what you preach, give him some space, but also be there and know when to toe the line. And understand, remember always that what you see playing out at the surface is not always what's going on inside. And if you do something really noble and really accountable, if you don't get acknowledged for it, don't take that personally. It all goes in. I watched with my own kids, and I watch with the kids I counsel. Sometimes a thank you will not be forthcoming, and there might be behavior that shows a deep lack of appreciation, and you might walk away feeling like, oh, I can't believe what I just did for him or her, and no thank you, no appreciation whatsoever. And then a month later, you'll be in another room, and you'll overhear the child saying something to one of his or her friends, directly quoting you, and you know it went in. They heard, they listened. That's part of the rebelliousness, the defiance. That's part of the cutting of the cord. Don't take it all so personally. It doesn't mean turn a blind eye to everything. Again, you have to be in the game here. It's not just a black and white, cut and dry, do I do this on Tuesday, that on Wednesday. It's an undulating, morphing, constant process. You know, that whole concept of the terrible twos doesn't even exist. There is no such thing as terrible twos. Twos are amazing. 12 to 16 window, that's where the rubber meets the road. You get through that with a smile on your face and not too many gray and white hairs, you've done a good thing. And if your kid comes out whole, you've done a good thing. Stay in the game, have compassion and patience for you, for him, and be there. And don't feel like you have to fill every conversation. I drive my daughter around tons of places where we don't say a word, and she doesn't want any music playing. Just give them a little space. Believe me, when they want to talk, they'll come down and sit at the table and they'll talk. They need time. They need more space now than ever. So I'm so, so glad you brought this up. I mean, at this particular time, because of my personal age, a lot of the people counseling all have teenagers right now. So right now I'm working with more teenagers than at any point in my life. So I'm so glad this question came up because it's going out to a lot of people. Thank you so much.